Hey, what is up? Norm and Mike back together again, like we've been all along and will continue to be. This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. It is Sunday, September 19th, 2021. The baseball playoff races are in the thick of it. The Yankees, who belong to Mike Augello, and my Blue Jays, part of that amazing process as we push forward to game 162. But this is a podcast about hockey, even though Mike and I like to digress and get into baseball as well. The Maple Leafs are just getting things going with some preseason activity in Michigan, Traverse City to be exact. Mike has been following the team on the Maple Leafs web channel, and a lot of us locally here in southwestern Ontario can watch all of the action on Leafs TV. Mike, the Leafs picked up a bit of a, I wouldn't say a wild card, but a no-risk player in a PTO with Nikita Gusev. That does change potentially if he can work himself into the mix, the dynamic on the flank. So why don't you just kind of get us started with your impressions of what you've seen from Traverse City, how you're feeling about the Gusev signing, and if you think that can generate any sort of momentum going into a training camp that may not be contentious or controversial, but one that'll be dissected every which way, considering the season the Leafs are coming off of and the season they're embarking on.
Well, let's click off Traverse City first. Players that have impressed so far, Nick Robertson, I mean, he should impress. He played in the NHL last year, and he dominated junior hockey the last full season with 55 goals. And has played in the World Junior. So, he's 20 years old. He's a little old for the tournament, but I think they really just wanted to get him work, and I think he's played well. Alex Steeves, who they signed out of Notre Dame, so an NCAA product, he looked good in the first game, and he looked good also in the rookie development camp the previous weekend, but he got hurt in game one. It was a shoulder injury, not something looked to be serious, but he didn't play in the second game. Mikhail Abramov, who is a really good, talented prospect who they drafted, I think, in the fourth round a couple years ago. A Russian player, played for Russia in the World Juniors, and he's looked pretty good as well. So I don't want to leave out Ian Scott, who I thought played well. Ian Scott was, along with Joseph Woll, were the two goalie prospects that the team, I think, was sort of hanging their hat on. And the last 2 years have been a disaster for him in terms of injuries. He's only played 2 AHL games and 6 games, I think, in the ECHL. So really, it's been a lost 2 years for him because of injury and the pandemic. So I think they're going to look to get him a lot of work, probably in Newfoundland. And then maybe bring him up to the AHL later in the year, because they want to give Wall a lot of work in the AHL, along with Eric Shalgren, and they have Michael Hutchinson as well. So that's the one thing the organization, I think they were focused on, getting organizational depth in goal. And the situation is, Jack Campbell has had injury issues. The years. Peter Mrazek has had some injury problems as well. They're looking to lighten the load on those two, having them be a tandem, but they have to be prepared for, if one of them does get hurt, to have somebody to be able to come up. Hutchinson has played in the league and played pretty decently last year, so they're covered there, but they need that organizational depth to bring players up through the chain.
This is the Convo. Norm in London, Mike in Buffalo. I like the idea of organizational depth, even though the organization does lack that goaltending heir apparent, right? And to build off of that scenario, it's not like in Campbell or Mrazek, the Leafs have a generational talent between the pipes. Campbell came out of nowhere to take the job from Freddie Anderson.
Right.
So I'm not shitting on it, because what we saw from Campbell was encouraging. Peter Mrazek, I don't see any reason why he can't be a capable backup. So the Leafs, the least of the Leafs' problems, at least at this point, are between the pipes. I wanted to make a point about Traverse City. It's I mean, considering it's not like, there's a huge spotlight on what's going on with the rookies right now. There isn't a Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux or Sidney Crosby type player,
Right.
just dipping their toe on the ice for 2 minutes just to make an appearance and come to training camp or anything like that. It's a different setup now because it's such an aside. Like, we're not concerned so much about it. Nick Robertson shows up, does his thing, but there's training camp and there's an entire process of a season that we're going to have to endure and find enjoyment in before we get to the point that you highlighted last podcast, that is so important, getting to the playoffs. But years past, Mike, back in the Ron Wilson days, the Paul Maurice days, even the Randy Carlyle, Mike Babcock days, initially, the rookie tournament was still a big deal. Maybe because I was working on the local news here and we were coming to London every so often.
Right.
But it was a big deal because it was the petri dish of talent that we were all expecting to usher through the system and save the organization. Well, now most of that talent is already in the big show. The rest of these guys are may quietly contribute at some point, but it's not the emphasis isn't on that tournament anymore. The growing has been done, and now the growth has to come home to roost, and that's what we're waiting for.
Well, I also think that there is definitely a difference in terms of ramping up towards training camp because it's not at the Budweiser Garden in London, which is a hop, skip, and a jump away from the big smoke. I made the drive to London for many years, from 2010 to I think it was 2017 or 2018, and then they held their rookie tournament in Toronto, and then now they joined Traverse City. I think it was mostly because of cost. But yeah, I mean, the spotlight was on the team in London. The Toronto media and media who covered them from Buffalo would travel to London, and it was sort of like that little preview. And yeah, I mean, okay, we know that Marner and Nylander and Matthews have graduated to NHL players rather than prospects, and compared to that, the well is comparatively dry, but it's not dry. There is talent that the Leafs have.
Yeah.
But being in northern Michigan and Traverse City amongst the Blue Jackets and the Blues and the Stars and the Wings, it's sort of far afield. It's sort of off the main page, and you have to really look for it to focus on it. And maybe that's what they want. They don't want the prospects to be like sort of ballyhooed and pumped up so much, because that maybe puts additional pressure on them. But
that's a good point.
Yeah, I think for example,
especially now.
Yeah, I think for example, Nick Robertson, because he debuted in the playoffs after the pandemic, after scoring 55 goals for Peterborough, and then playing early in the season last year before he got injured, the expectation was, Nick Robertson's going to be plugged in and he's going to replace Zach Hyman. That doesn't look to be the developmental model that they're following here. I think the fact that he played in the rookie development camp and that he played in the Traverse City tournament for the second year in a row tells you, or maybe third year in a row, I believe. No, there was no Traverse City last year. It was the year before. So second Traverse City tells you that he's going to start the year with the Marlies unless he just blows up in training camp. And not to say that's impossible, because there's an opportunity there for him to play, but I think because of what they did in free agency and who they may have added on a PTO, which we'll talk about in a second, I think they're saying, okay, well, if Nick isn't ready, we're not going to force feed him in there. We're going to put him with the Marlies, where he played well in a limited window last year. He's 20 years old. Give him some time. And if it doesn't work out with the guys that we brought in at the NHL level, we can bring him up in the middle of the season. That's smart. I think that's a well-intentioned and structured way that Dubas has done that, because if you bring him in and you put all the pressure on him and you put him with Matthews or you put him with Tavares and he doesn't do well, then you may have ruined a 20-year-old prospect.
Rob, I already gave you guys a thumbs up. Will85, good morning, by the way, to the few of you who were with us. My prediction this season, first round of the playoffs against Ottawa, going to Game 7. The anxiety is already palpable, Mike. We're already predicting that a team that was so far behind us at one point in the past is going to reach the playoffs and get to a stage that this Maple Leafs team that has been fueled, with optimism and, is running with a lot of top-notch players, hasn't been able to get over in terms of a hump. So the anxiety is that the rest of the league and the Leafs rivals are already going to somehow catch us before we, enter a stage where we've been able to be totally successful. And I don't blame fans for feeling that way. I do believe this entire season is going to be, it is going to be weighed down by skepticism and frustration that will be loosened and completely unshackled throughout the season as the Leafs get better and progress and indicate that better days are ahead, but better days are imminent.
Well, to Will's point, I mean, there are going to be 6 teams in the Atlantic that could make the playoffs. I mean, it's not a joke anymore that Ottawa. I mean, Ottawa's got Brady Tkachuk. They got Stützle. They have Thomas Chabot. They have a really bevy of young talent. They're maybe where the Leafs were in 2016, where all these guys. Now they actually, Tkachuk's got more. Matthews came in as a rookie and Marner came in as a rookie, and they just jumped into it. These guys have had a year or two under their belt. But they're all young. They have a lot of talent. The question is, will they get the goaltending from Matt Murray? But Ottawa could make a charge, and we saw that they challenged the Leafs last year in the regular season games. They were a tough out. I think Montreal is not as good as they were last year. And then you have the top 4, which I think will battle for the top 3 spots of one of the wild cards. So it's not gonna be easy. It really isn't going to be an easy fight, and that's why the things that I think that fans took for granted, like, oh, they're going to make the play. No, they may be a wild card team. They could be, they could finish in 3rd, but they could finish in 5th and finish out of the playoffs. And if that happens, then everything is up for grabs, including Brendan Shanahan's spot as team president and Dubas and Sheldon Keefe. So there's a lot of pressure on the regular season. But then the point is, great, you made the playoffs. Now win, and that's what they haven't done in 17 years.
Grand Johnstone, much love to you too. Much love back at you. GJ, Ty Block. They should trade Mikheyev and Engvall, run with Gusev and the guy who we have on PTO from Islanders. Well, can't think of his name. It's a player who you can't think of his name to be mentioned later.
Yeah, Josh. But let's bring up Mikheyev because I forgot about that. The report came out. I think it was Chris Johnston. Maybe no, it was Elliot Friedman. That came out and said that Mikheyev had requested a trade after the season last year, and the reason that he requested a trade, although I don't know whether. He specified that it was because of ice time and where he was in the lineup. They brought in Nick Foligno. Nick Foligno was playing in the top 6 until he got injured. They were playing Hyman in the top 6. Mikheyev was mostly for the year playing on the 3rd line. His offensive numbers were down, and they were basically saying, okay, well, Mikheyev, opportunity was not there, so he needs to go someplace a year before being a UFA to, get a chance to play in the top 6. I don't know many teams that would put Ilya Mikheyev in the top 6. I love him as a player. He hustles. He's good defensively. He's got speed. He has no finish, and that's the problem. He is, you put him with Tavares and you put him with Matthews, and he gets the puck on his stick, and it's not going to go in the net. And I know the same thing was said about Zach Hyman, and Zach Hyman improved to the point that he did convert on those opportunities. But Mikheyev in 3 years hasn't, or in 2 years. I think 2 years. Yeah. It hasn't. So, I mean, how many times can you go to the well and say, okay, well, give me an opportunity? Well, okay, score on the 3rd line, and then they'll give you a chance on the 2nd line. But so, I mean, the Leafs weren't prepared to honor that request, and they're saying that they're going to give him more of an opportunity. But I don't see him playing in the top 6 this year. Maybe they start him there, but when he doesn't score goals again, they're going to move him back to the 3rd line. So that's it.
That's amazing, though. And a sign of professional sports, a guy who really hasn't done anything hinting, insinuating, demanding, suggesting a trade. Come on, man. Like, seriously, you've got a ways to go to prove yourself. This entire team does. Marcus Daly says he has a good question. This year's team better or worse than last year's edition? At this point, it does on paper. It's clearly not as good. Will it be better? It has a chance to be. The thing is, though, Marcus, last year's team was good in the regular season.
Right.
They won the division.
Yeah.
So if this team doesn't win the division, then it wouldn't have been as good as the previous years. However, if it gets into the playoffs and wins a round, then it will have accomplished more. So on paper, it's not as good. Do I see it as a division winner in the New Atlantic? Not a chance.
Marcus,
not a chance. But then that's just me, calling a spade a spade. Would I like to be pleasantly surprised? Who wouldn't? My playoff predictions.
Let me answer.
Yeah.
Marcus, winning the North Division, that and $5 will get you a coffee at Tim Hortons. Zippity doo dah. That's in the past. They won the North Division. They lost in the first round. Do I think this team right now, roster-wise, optically, is better than last year? No, because the Hyman loss is going to be something that they're going to have to struggle and then probably go through some different line combinations at the beginning of the year to find out if they have a valid replacement. But it could be better in the long run because if they do gel, and they do advance in the play. All of this depends on getting in the playoffs and winning at least a round. If they do that, they're better than last year. If they don't, they're not. That's
Mike. It all depends on four guys: Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Matthews.
I see. I quibble with that, Norm, because honestly, what they do is sort of the baseline. Okay, they're going to do what they're going to do. If one of them gets hurt or if one of them has a bad year, then that baseline changes. It's going to be what happens around them. Will they get the support from support players? Because that takes weight off. They
got it last year, Mike, and they did not. The four of them collectively weren't able to produce enough to get this team past Montreal. Tavares was injured. Nylander, he's it was the greatest playoff in the history of any hockey player. Nylander produced that over that 7 games. No one's ever played better playoff hockey in the history of the game.
Yeah.
Martyr was terrible, and Matthews didn't. We needed another 2 or 3 goals from it. It was those guys. So,
Matthews won the Rocket Richard, and Marner was in the top 5 in scoring, and it didn't matter in the end because they lost to Montreal. So this year, if they played a little less dominant in the regular season and then won in the playoffs, everybody's going to consider that a better year. But it's really, it's going to be get enough offense from those players. But also, you have to take the way, for you to have team success, you're going to have others contribute. And, that means Kerfoot. That means the guys that we're going to talk about in a minute about the left wing situation. That means Mikheyev, Engvall, Spezza, all the support players getting offense from the defense and the goaltending. It's going to mean all that working in concert. If that happens, then they could be better, but we don't know yet.
Mark has asked us a prediction, and it's just too early to delve into that right now on how the Leafs may do in the playoffs. I predict they'll lose again. Why not? Why shouldn't I? What indication do I have that the Leafs will finally get over the hump this time, right?
Let's make the playoffs first. I will predict that they're going to make the playoffs, but let's wait until we see who they match up with and how they look going into the playoffs before I'm going to make a prediction. I'm not going to look that far. I'm not Nostradamus. I can't look that far in the future.
You're not. Come on, Mike. We know deep down you feel you are. It's time to put up or shut up. Chris, now we have a serious duo in net. Yes, Hyman's loss is huge, but he can always be replaced. Of course, he can be replaced, but can he be replaced?
Well, okay, this is a good transition to talk about the left wingers. So,
you got to get that left wing discussion on the table.
Because honestly, I think it is the key area for this team to have success this year is how they addressed the left wing situation. Because right wing, you've got Marner, Nylander, probably Mikheyev and either Simmons or Spezza playing on the fourth line. Right wing is fine. Center, there's some speculation that David Kampf is going to be the third line center if they move Kirk to the wing. That's a joke. I mean, I think David Kampf is a fourth line center defensive guy. He's not going to play third line. But left wing, okay, so they lose Hyman, they lose Foligno, they don't re-sign Galchenyuk. They sign Michael Bunting and they signed Nick Ritchie. Ritchie, I really like the addition because he's big, he's physical, but he's limited. He's not a great skater. So I've been told
he brings what he brings, and within that realm of talent and what he's expected to do, if he fulfills that role, then the other guys have to do their thing, and as a collective, they'll succeed. But
I've been told by people who covered him in Boston that he fits maybe second, third line, but he can't play top line because he just doesn't have the speed. So maybe he's on the third line, maybe he's on the second line with Tavares and Nylander. We'll see where they place him when training camp begins on Wednesday. Bunting is the one that's the sort of the wild card. Rick Tocchet was interviewed on TSN radio last week and said, he is a greasy guy. Now he's got very limited NHL experience. He only played 21 games with Arizona, but when he came up, Tocchet was like, most of our team played on the periphery, played on the outside. Bunting went to the front of the net, went to the dirty areas, was not hesitant to do it. He's hungry. He's played, 3 years in the American Hockey League. He came up and he did what he needed to do to make an impression. He became a UFA. He wanted to come to Toronto. He's a Scarborough kid. Yeah. He took less to sign a 2-year deal with the Leafs, for obvious reasons, because he makes it in Toronto in 2 years, he's going to be getting big money. So it's a smart move for him. I think there's an opportunity and a chance that he could be the Hyman replacement. Not do everything that Zach Hyman does, but I'm saying the Hyman replacement on the top line with Matthews and Marner. And if that happens, then that's a fantastic signing. Now they signed Nikita Gusev to a PTO. I know Gusev from the year that he played with the Devils. Now he's had a sort of strange career, stayed mostly in Russia until he was almost guaranteed a spot with the Devils. His rights were traded from Tampa Bay to Vegas. Then he went to New Jersey a couple years ago, and he almost led the Devils in scoring. 44 points. He had 31 assists. He's a skilled winger, speed, good playmaking ability. He can score, but I mean, he's mostly a setup guy, which fits with the Leafs in terms of their two shooting centers, Tavares and Matthews are shoot first guys. So putting Gusev on the left side with your Nylander or Marner on the right side,
and he's nice and small for the organization too.
Well, yeah, he's not a big guy, but this is the thing, Norm. He is not a 200-foot player. He is not a two-zone player. He is an offensive guy, and I think the reason that he dropped off last year, he was making $4.5 million with New Jersey.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, Lindy Ruff comes in. Lindy Ruff has had a history, especially with certain Russian players, like Maxim Afinogenov in Buffalo, and Valery Nikushkin in Dallas, where if they don't play anywhere close to how he wants them to play, they get blackballed. And his ice time got cut a little bit. And at the end of the year, before the deadline, he asked the Devils to terminate his contract. He ended up going to Florida at the end of the year. So he's just looking for a landing spot. And it may not lead to him getting a contract, but it's very possible if he comes in. JP Barry is his agent. He may have come in to say, okay, well, we'll give you a look, and that's it. But it also may be, we'll give you a look, and we signed you to a 1-year contract at the veteran minimum, and he plays with top 6 talent that he could really score. He could really score for them. So I think he is somebody who they have as a safety net to if Robertson isn't ready. Yep. And I think that he probably will get signed to a contract, but nothing is guaranteed.
Yeah, remember last season? Okay, so the regular season was terrific. Does it deserve to have an asterisk beside it statistically, because it was the Scotia North Division and it was just all Canadian teams. I don't care what you want to do. I look at it like it was a good campaign for the Leafs. Goaltending was solid. We never complained about the defensive group. The team did play a 200-foot game. Guys like Marner, for as many times as we would get on him for being ridiculous. I mean, he was out there running ragged, as a two-way guy and still putting up the kinds of points he did. Look, the Leafs can't get away from playing defensive hockey, all three zones. They can't get away from that. This can't be a season of, fire wagon. We'll score 6 or 7, and then, poor Mrazek and Campbell are going to get peppered to the extent of either they've let in one too many goals or one fewer than the opposition. I mean, this isn't a knock them down, drag them out. A guy like Nikita Gusev, you can see potentially developing some synergy with some of the top skill guys, and him elevating them and them doing the same for him. But if Gusev comes in and is sort of typifies a bit of a change in the idea of how this team is going to play, and it's just loosey goosey, it's one track minded, one component of the game that'll be emphasized to the detriment of another, then he's not going to last long with this organization, right? Or if he does, then the organization's change in philosophy is going to lead to nothing but disaster. And I'm not saying bring in a guy on a PTO and change the way you play.
Right.
But again, if Gusev's had run-ins with other coaches in his short time in North America, the guy's played forever in Russia, then makes all this money, comes over here. He was good with New Jersey to start, but if he's already fallen out of favor with other coaches because, again, they're boomers and they don't understand the young guys, then that's one thing. However, if he's not contributing the way he should, and now he comes to the Leafs and think he's going to get away with that, if he does, there's a huge problem with this organization. If he doesn't, then at least it was a no-risk opportunity. They gave him a shot, and it didn't work out.
I think it's a situation where, and maybe we're overemphasizing it because we'll see what where he's placed in training camp. If he's placed on a top 6 line, then that's he's probably making the team, and that or they're going to give him that opportunity.
Yeah,
but they know what type of player he is. His style of play is well established from his days in the KHL and his 2 years in the NHL. So they know, and let's just say this, on September 18th, a two-way monster, a power forward, is not available on the scrap heap in free agency. They're bringing in what was available. I mean, James Neal can't skate anymore. So you're not going to bring in James Neal, and there the other free, Alex Galchenyuk is not signed. There has to be a reason for that. I mean, they didn't bring him back. Not that he was in an attitude. Maybe the fact that he had that giveaway in the playoffs that was an unforgivable situation. I don't know. I don't know the reason why.
I can't see them not bringing him back because of that.
No, but I'm just saying. I mean, there has to be a reason because they didn't bring him back. So, and there's talk about. I've seen internet rumors of him possibly going back to Montreal, and I don't know if those are true either. But
who cares?
Yeah, right. I mean, if he's not on the Leafs radar, then he's not on the Leafs radar. But I'm just saying they know what Gusev is, and if they think that Gusev at $750K can fit in a scoring role for them, and he clearly has the skill to do that, then it's sort of like them bringing in Joe Thornton last year. But Joe Thornton played the left side and on the first line for the beginning of the year, and then clearly after a while couldn't keep up and ended up on the fourth line. And if Gusev ends up on the fourth line, then he's probably not going to play because the line has to be defensively responsible. So that's the whole thing. It's a swing. It's a free swing. They haven't signed him to a contract yet. They need depth on the wing. Also, like Andre Kasha, who they signed, we don't know if he's going to play. I mean, the guy's had concussion issues. I'm assuming the Leafs checked him out medically before they signed him to a 1-year contract. And if they they probably had to for insurance purposes, but nobody knows if this guy's going to play. So, I mean, it could be a depth move. It could be basically a swing at a pitch here. And we'll see. Like starting on Wednesday when training camp starts, where he fits in. And I just have to mention Rob in the chat. I don't know if you're going to bring this up. Rob in the chat was like, the Leafs should have added Chara. Chara was not coming to Toronto, and it wasn't because of the Leafs. His family is based in Boston. He wanted to stay on the Eastern Seaboard. He signed with the Islanders. The Islanders could be the favorite to come out of the East to win the Stanley Cup. So he's going to be a bottom pairing guy on the Islanders, like he was a fourth or fifth defenseman on Washington. It's close to his family in Boston. I mean, he was never coming to Toronto, especially with the border crossing situation right now. He was never coming to Toronto. I would have loved Chara on that bottom pairing being sort of a caretaker for Rasmus Sandin or Liljegren, but it wasn't going to happen.
Losing Bogosian sucks, but it's not like the organization's fortunes were tied to this guy's employment with the team, right?
Right.
He was good while he was here. Who fills his skates? That remains to be seen. The other thing, too, is, Mike, we can't pin last year's failure, which happened in the last 3 games of the playoffs, on anything other than the team, especially the team stars, Marner and Matthews, the guys who make the big money, the guys you expect to push this team through, drag this team through, be there in the end. Anything other than these guys just not getting it done. It wasn't. We can't look back on it and go, the goaltending was fucking terrible. The defense was inept. Clearly the power play wasn't great, but the Leafs still put themselves in a position to win a series up 3-1. They failed to get it done. Okay, so whether Chara comes in or not, it's not the linchpin in an explosion of success, right? This is a situation where you go forward with the main core that you had last year. That was a successful core, with the add-ons that don't seem as sexy as the players who were brought in years past. But this team should still be considered a playoff team, should still be considered an outside contender for the division with the group. We do know, however, though, any more failures that result in anything less than getting past the first round of the playoffs will come with more consequences than we have seen in years past. It is time to get the job done. And I'll make one quick point. I know there was an article that Brendan Shanahan said we're just going to stick with the plan. I made a comment about it, and I was kind of ridiculed for not being classy. But I'm sorry, we're all at a point now where it's time to put up or shut up, because the team is capable, and if it doesn't, again, we are going to see some changes coming. Mike, I'll leave the last few words to you, and then we can get out of here.
Yeah, let me address that, because what choice do they have? That's the problem. It's like, they've invested $40 million on 4 players in Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander.
Yeah.
Okay, now all of a sudden in midstream, you can't exactly change directions and become, a shutdown defensive Barry Trotz team like the New York Islanders. You're a skill team, and they're saying, okay, well, we're a skill team. We've cast our lot in that. We're going to have to stay. And, I don't agree with it. I think they have to be multidimensional. I think, they've brought in a couple players like Richie who will give them some physicality, and they added Simmons last year. I think they're improved defensively from where they were a couple years ago. Do I think they'll get better goaltending out of Campbell and Mrazek than Freddie Anderson? That's yet to be seen. I mean, we don't
know about injuries, Mike. And Mrazek might be a guy for going for 20 games. Who knows? And
injuries too. And and that's the thing. It's like, but all you can do is look at the history of the team and look at what happened last year. Yes, it's on Matthews and Marner. It's on the core group, but you also have to take into consideration that Tavares wasn't there for all 7 games. Is it forgivable that they're up 3-1 against a team that they were more talented than and lost? No, it's not. And Leaf fans are well within their rights to be pissed off at this team and sort of like, they're never going to win. I get that. But there's talent there. You've got great players. You've got one of the best centers in the league in Matthews. You've got one of the best playmakers in the league in Marner. You've got talent throughout that lineup, and we'll see over the next 6 months whether this team gets through the regular season and has success in the playoffs. There's reason to be skeptical, but we'll see. And
Chris Daniels, he thinks this team could be better than last year's team. Was last year's division on paper easier for the Maple Leafs to play in than this Atlantic Division will be?
Yes.
I feel the same way. Again, these guys, the core group and the contributors will all be a year better. Hopefully there's a burr in the saddle. Hopefully there's a chip on their shoulders as humans, as professionals, as players and people who want to see something through. And they play that way responsibly in this new season to come, even with more adversity to face than the season past, and maybe in a different way. But I do not think that what I'm looking at right now will result in better than what we saw last year, mainly because the competition is going to be so much more diverse. And we'll just have to see how it all plays out. The good thing, Mike, is that you and I will get together every week and we'll talk about what we've seen and set up what we believe we're going to see in the weeks ahead. So any last points you want to make, and then we'll wrap her up.
And hopefully next week I'll be able to talk to you about being at training camp. After the show today, I am heading to a couple of establishments in the local area to have a swab stuck up my nose for a PCR test that I hopefully will get the results for before Wednesday morning when I have to cross into Canada. I mean, everybody has to deal with it. I'm not special, but it's like, I honestly, the whole pandemic is pretty much on an equal playing field in Canada and in the U.S. I went to my first game in a rink since February. Actually, I think I mentioned this before. The last game I went to before the shutdown was the David Ayers game. So So Friday, seeing a scrimmage between the Sabres and the Devils was the first time I'd been in a rink since February 22nd of 2020. So
speaking of Leafs lows.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And so somebody basically said that was sort of I told Chris Johnston that, and he said that was sort of like a karmic thing that maybe I shouldn't go back to seeing Leaf games because that was the last time I'd been there. But but I'm looking forward to Wednesday, and we're gonna see. I'm assuming we'll do the usual thing of talking to Kyle Dubas before the opening of camp and talking to a number of players, socially distanced, I'm sure. But it's gonna be interesting, and this is gonna be a camp where there are a lot of question marks, and they're gonna be answered over. I think it's 6 preseason games and a number of practices, and then we'll get to the regular season on October 15th, I believe.
Rob and Jerkball are going at it in the comments. Guys, we're all in this together. We're all Maple brothers. The one thing we have to refrain from doing, Mike, and remind me, and I'll remind you, and OG's Converse do the same. We can't set everything on fire every week. If the team's doing poorly, it's not a blow them up, and the team's not doing well, or the team is doing well. We can't, temper the excitement with, the team blew it in the playoffs and show me what you can do in April. This is going to be a long haul. We have to live in the moment, take it day by day. We know this team is capable of doing well. It still has a great core. There are things to improve upon, and there are things to achieve that this group has collectively not achieved yet. Mm-hmm. And we're assuming that, if the wants and the aspirations of the fans are eclipsed by the wants and the aspirations of that group, right? Real quick, Mike, and I've given you the last word like 4 times. We have about 2 weeks to go in the baseball season. How does this thing end up? I'm thinking that it ends in the last couple of days. I feel like if the Jays cannot be nullified by good pitching between now and the end, they'll grab one of those last 2 wildcard spots. They hit too well. They seem too dialed in. However, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of good pitching against them and, a couple of lucky runs for the other teams, and the Jays will probably be on the outside looking in. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the Jays entering September are just incredibly hot, and their line. I mean, we've never thought that their lineup was the big question mark. It's always been whether the pitching can match it. And the thing is that I'm sort of a little disappointed at the fact that of anybody other than Robbie Ray. Ryu has not pitched well lately. Berrios has not been as dominant as I thought he was.
Well, he pitches today to wrap up the series.
But
that's a big.
Now he hasn't been as dominant as as he was with the Twins. And I don't particularly like their bullpen, but you've got a situation where Boston has been ravaged with COVID. But they're getting Sales. Sales is back. I don't know if he's as dominant as he once was, but he's back.
And what do you make of the Yankees? They're hard to figure.
Yeah, the Yankees are so schizophrenic. They win 13 games in a row, then they lose 10 of 12. They play the Baltimore. They go, I think it was 11-8 or 10-8 against the Baltimore Orioles, which everybody else in the division has beaten like redheaded stepchildren. So it makes no sense. But and they've been not only devastated by injuries, but devastated by just stupid play by some of their players like Gleyber Torres and Gary Sanchez. Whether they can straighten it, they haven't straightened it out all year, but they've been able to maintain a sort of higher level of mediocrity to get to the point that I think they probably get into the 1-game playoff. It's a question of where is it going to be? Is it going to be in Toronto? Is it going to be in Boston? Is it going to be in New York? Well, will they have Garrett Cole be able to pitch that game? Because, they may not have the ability to manipulate their rotation to pitch in the wild card game. I don't know. All I know is it's going to be nerve-wracking for Blue Jays fans, Red Sox fans, and Yankee fans over the next 2.5 weeks.
I'm always waiting for the energy and the fuel of a great run to finally be exhausted once and for all and have it end before the team fully realizes its glorious opportunity. The thing about September is we have seen teams go on mind-boggling runs and go through the playoffs and make their way to a particular point. The Rockies did it back in 2007. I think the A's did it back in the Moneyball era. So it remains to be seen. We've also seen teams back into the playoffs too. The Cardinals won a World Series in 2006 with 83 wins. Yeah, they were giving games away. They were telling teams to beat them. We don't want to make the playoffs. They got it, and it's going to be fun down the stretch. Just one observation: is Nestor Cortez not the most New York looking Yankee of all time?
And he looks
like a stickball champion from Brooklyn.
And you know what? He's been the greatest surprise. And this guy does not have a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. He throws a lot of off-speed junk. He's a lefty. But he's a lefty in Yankee Stadium. He pitches with guile. He drops sidearm. He throws. He pauses. He's like Louis Tiant in that respect. He'll pause his windup. Yeah, all he does is win and pitch good. And it's guys like Jamison Tyone or Andrew Heaney, that gas can, who have more ability and have like a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. They're not, Tyone wins, but that I would sign Nestor Cortez for 2 years. It won't cost you a lot, and he's a glue type pitcher. He was supposed to be a long reliever, and now he's in the rotation, and all he does is give them quality innings and I think he struck out 11 guys in his last.
No, he was good. It's unfortunately the guy who was catching him couldn't hold the ball.
Shocking.
It's time to end it with Gary Sanchez, man. Honestly, he's when what's his name? Alejandro Kirk about a month ago, he was catching and trying to do his best Tony Pena impression. Had one knee on the dirt and the other leg out.
Yeah,
that is not how you're supposed to receive baseballs behind a major league plate. And I think it was Robbie Ray put through one, because Robbie Ray can be throw them in the dirt, and you've got to be ready to block that ball. The ball went through Kirk's legs, and they have yanked from the game. He didn't catch for like 2 weeks.
They have Sanchez doing the same thing, because that is the model for teams that want catchers to frame pitches, to be able to and that cost them a game because Sanchez couldn't catch a pitch that was a couple feet outside of the strike zone, and he was stuck down on one knee, and then ended up costing a game. So yeah, way to go there.
Yeah, Sanchez is making millions of dollars. Kirk is making high six figures. I'm sorry, be professional. Alejandro Kirk, I love the guy. And imagine a guy who's 5'8" has a beer belly, and he's playing in the major leagues. There's a reason why. He clearly has talent. You can go find other catchers, and there are 3 catchers on the roster. And he clearly has talent. So I'm not shitting on him. I'm just saying it's an important position, and you have to do it right. Just a couple of shout outs before we go. Jeffrey Curry tuning in from a train from Hangzhou, China. I love that. And then we have Mr. Chris C 2002 is here. Is that when you were born? 2002. Yeah. Oh my God, Mike! What the heck? Hey, you know, us old homies are bringing in the kids.
I was in the crib when Darcy Tucker took out Michael Pekka's knee. Yeah.
Oh, that was unbelievable. All right, guys, we appreciate you being here. Tell your friends about what we're doing. We're on YouTube, and then the podcast gets uploaded to iTunes in the next day or so. Let everybody know that we're going to be going weekly, and then as the season gets going, we'll add some shows during the week, because season 4 of the Leafs Convo is the most important thing in your lives. Be here for it all the time. For Mike, I'm Norm. We're up.